Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Debate Club. This is a platform where we engage in weekly debates and discussions on various topics. The topic for this week is AI will revolutionize the field of education. Agree or disagree? To set the context, AI has been uh, a great part of our lives ever since it has entered the field of technology, and we see AI being implemented in basically more or less all fields of our life. And education has been one of the fields where it has been showing great impacts. So the topic being, will AI revolutionize the field of education? There are two chances to this. One where people agree, and the other, obviously, the stance of disagreement. So AI can help teachers have less burden of administrative tasks, so they can focus more on children and student interactions, which makes education more interactive. And the teachers can focus more on students, and it can also have better accessibility. The educational tools that are provided by AI can be accessed 24/7, and it creates a more immersive educational environment for the students. But at the same time, there are also points of disagreement where people are concerned about student information, sensitive student information, their personal information leaking. So there is privacy concern, and there is also a point of digital divide where people who live in underserved areas who might not have access to such technology may get left behind in this AI race. They might not have access to such tools and kits that are provided by AI. And also, educational institutions which might not have a budget to implement AI systems might lack in the race. So there becomes a divide between people who have access to AI-based education and people who don't. So while AI is a great implementation in the field of education and it can help education be more immersive and interactive and more accessible. There is also the question of whether everybody is able to access it. And if not, how does that play out, right? So, with that context in place, we're now going to be starting the debate for today. People who wish to speak will have to raise their hands using the reaction button, and it would be appreciated if the speakers keep their arguments within 5 minutes. Thank you. Anybody that wishes to speak will have to use the reaction button to raise their hands. That's how you're going to get a chance to speak. I see Alvin. Please go ahead.
Okay, let's just go to the points that the documents gave us in the group. Wait a minute. Okay, I am on the topic on agree. I think this topic will also going to be on one side, because everyone is on every kid is using mobile phones, and they will definitely be using AI as a platform, whereas AI will not revolutionize education. Uh, I don't even think there is going to be a debate on that side, because, like, you see, AI is becoming a major part in our every part of the apps, because even on the app we are using now, there is an AI tool in that. So they are trying the companies are trying to implement the AI applications in every part of their app. Why do they do so? Even in if you go to WhatsApp, there is an cloud bot, Meta AI, everything. Majorly, they are implementing AI features in it, so it will be easy to access them. But what's the major issue in the AI is that it gives us a lot of errors. It gives us a lot of, what to say, mistakes in the information it gives. That's the major problem now. But I will think in the future the AI will be evolving in a more, what to say, like, in a uh, the data collecting will be much more efficient, and it will provide more detailed manner the questions or the answers, and it will provide more authoritative answers to the users. So it will help users in the future very much, I think so, because it will easily summarize anything to you. Because now you see, in if you search for Google anything now, if you search for any topic, if you want to search for, I want to go to this college, or if you want to search for this topic or that topic, it will show first five links or sponsored links, and you have to go through all that links, and then only you find the natural organic SEO links. Uh, Now I am debating in LinkedIn that whether SEO will be useful for in this context. Now, will the AI will recognize SEO as a sponsored link as the major term, or like that? Like that, there is a lot of problem in that also, SEO in Google search and search and so. But I will think now there are search GPTs now coming out. I will think that will revolutionize the search engine optimization. That will be definitely a new change. I'm definitely agreeing that it will change our lifestyle, but I will definitely not say it will not revolutionize, because we have to adapt to change. If we don't adapt to change, it will the change will. Oh, sorry. Okay, I will keep it short. Thank you.
Thank you, Alvin. Raghav, please go ahead.
Yeah. So I think the answer is for me, it's pretty obvious. There is no field that is going to be untouched by AI, and it makes no sense to prevent its entry into education. I think it's already happening. There is no possible authority that can stop it from, getting into education. It's already happening. Now, with the problem of the equality of opportunity across the various demographics, that was one of the problems. That was one of the problems that was mentioned in the opening statement for the for why AI in education is kind of harmful or something. I mean, that's a really absurd argument, because like you don't prevent a certain section of the society from accessing the resources that they can simply because it gives them additional advantages. Every parent wants their child to get the best they can. They don't want to wait for the rest of the population to catch up. We have a competition. Okay, our children are in a competition, and definitely whoever adopts that is going to have the advantage. And maybe the government will realize down the line that we have to democratize AI-based education, and make it as part of the Right to Education Act, like certain minimum standards of like how to use technology in education and all these things. And we can try to get it accessible to larger sections of the population. And I think the way we have to, there's a larger discussion at hand here, being that if you have AI-based education, then you know like there are things that you can do now that were not possible. So you have to like bring in certain responsible rail guards around the use of AI. So that is always going to be there. I think we already have these kind of discussions happening in the AI world, where about they're talking about the ethics of AI itself. So obviously, there is a larger discussion here that's happening about whether AI is harmful or is it good. And I stand on the line of like it's always beneficial. It's going to make things easier. I think there is a lot of like irrational apprehension about AI and certain things that it comes with. But I think that that's nothing fundamentally different from any other technology that has come in the past. But AI does have a very distinction in that it can change things too quickly, unlike other technologies, right? And I think that's a separate debate. I don't want to bring that into here, but I do see AI as being like an assistant for anything that we are capable of doing. So, for example, right now, if you're able to do 10 hours of work with just a modern smartphone and a computer, maybe with AI you would be able to do those same things in 5 hours. So that's the kind of advantage that I see AI bringing into the process flows. It can eliminate some tasks so that like you have more time to do more things. So I don't think it's anything fundamentally different, and I definitely think that we should use AI in education. It's inevitable, um, and I think it's a good thing.
Thank you, Raghav. Suryansh, please go ahead.
Hey, thanks. So I'll share what my perspectives on this are. So I definitely agree with both Raghav as well as Alvin on their point of AI is definitely going to revolutionize education. I just want to take a step back and kind of define when we are saying education, right? So the way I look at it is, of course, there's primary education, secondary education, college education, right? And when we kind of move up from like primary education to higher education, and even when we think about the kind of upskilling that even the workers, the professionals are kind of doing, right? So it kind of moves from like a curriculum based pedagogical learning that we typically have, that this is your syllabus, right? From there we move to like a self directed learning, which has to in a way come in, right? Now what I personally feel is that the kind of solutions which are out there, especially when you look at the likes of GPTs and the LLM models that are there, that are more directed towards the self-directed learning route. Not so much for the curriculum-based pedagogical style as of now. And the way the solutions will come around when we think about innovation at that scale is something which we learn in the future, right? How it pans out. But I think that for now, I believe that the current technology is more beneficial for the latter, right? Now I want to bring a point of when we think about education, right? And like if you think about the models of education, when a curriculum is based, right? And one of my interest areas is kind of metacognition and learning how to learn and all. So there's a core principle of learning, which one of the frameworks which is used to define a curriculum is Bloom's taxonomy. Bloom's taxonomy kind of defines the way we kind of learn anything from the initial stages, which is lower order thinking, to higher order thinking, right? And this again kind of bridges the gap from primary to secondary education and so on and so forth. And what I feel is the way a lot of these tools which are there, the technology is there, but the way we use it is going to define how well we are able to kind of leverage AI, right? Because there's often a sense of false learning. Like if you look at a book, if you earlier used to read a book for let's say 7 8 hours, now anybody will go just search a GPT summary and then they will get a 10-minute summary of it. They'll read it, they'll feel great, I've learned the concepts, right? But that is not how learning really works, right? So if you don't have the right cognitive load while learning, you'll feel great and you'll feel a sense of being able to learn everything in so fast, and you're just summarizing podcasts and learning. But that is not how learning really works. So the way AI, like the tools will be there, but the right techniques to learn, the learning strategies, that is where I believe, which is like the cons of the technology will be there, but it is not necessarily going to revolutionize unless there is a real focus either via the institution or via the private sector, on the likes of how do we kind of bridge this gap, right? And on the point of equality of opportunity, which was brought about in the beginning, in the opening remarks, to that I believe it is far, far, far improving the chances of kind of reaching a wider scale compared to the current education system. Because if you look at the schools and kind of reach that a good teacher kind of has, it's far different from that of like right now. Even with technology, we can reach so much more the remotest part and the poorest part of the country, which is just impossible to do with the offline kind of the world, right? So these are some of my thoughts.
Thank you, Suryansh. Raghav, please go ahead.
Yeah, I think Suryansh, I definitely appreciate that you brought in this perspective as well. I think there's a very nuanced point there that you have to first AI is more like a decorator around decoration around the structure. The actual revolution that needs to happen is in the fundamental structure itself. AI is kind of like it's more like a paint or on over a building or like the furniture or something like that. The actual structural integrity has to be overhauled, and we're long overdue. Like a pedagogical revolution, and I definitely agree with that point. And I think in some sense you can argue that the introduction of AI, it's going to make things so much faster that people it is definitely going to contribute to that revolution, because when people realize that the things that you've been asking them to do are just things that any machine can do, then they will feel a sense of void. Okay, like because nothing you're learning from the school is actually something that the machines can't do. So why are we making our children do these things? So they'll try to explore from a fresh perspective as to what it is that education should constitute. And I think it can create the room for a lot like a large population of people to come in and have this conversation as to how to reform education, because everybody's talking about it. I mean, every time I bring up the topic, people agree with me that the education is total crap right now, and they want to change things. They there is a perceived sense of need for that, but it feels like there is nobody at the top working on that. Right. So definitely agree with the requirement of that being the more important revolution. But I do think that AI is going to catalyze that revolution from happening faster.
Thank you, Raghav. Prince, please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Rose. Even though whatever I wanted to say has already been said by Raghav and Suryash, but I'll like to add to whatever they were saying. So, although I do believe AI can have some minor changes into the education system, but it is in no way capable in itself to have a whole entire revolution within the education system. It it is only going to assess the system a bit at max. And why I say so is AI is not a new term. The term AI was used first time in 1956 by John McCarthy, and there has been this evolutionary phases of how the AI works, or what we call AI. Earlier, machine learning used to be called as AI, and I'll say this Chat GPT AI era is something that has had a great leap. But I guess someone already said that Chat GPT can provide you book summaries, but it can never provide you the actual essence of books. Like I always say, you cannot rely on book summaries to have the exact essence of a book, because book summaries are written by some people, and everyone comes with their own perspective and have their own understanding. So in learning, if you actually want to develop your psyche, and I do actually believe that learning is more about developing your psyche and your intellect rather than any specific degree. So if you actually want to do that and you actually want to gain knowledge, then you have to sit down and read the books. AI can assist you in recognizing the obsolete material and the more important parts, but it cannot be the sole the sole thing that you can rely on for reading books or something like that. I'll also like to equate this chat GPT AI era with what happened after the computers, after the introduction of computers and internet into India. When YouTube lectures are going on and lectures are being put on YouTube, then people actually believe that this college system, quote unquote college system, is gonna come crumbling down. But it can assist you. It can assist you in learning. It can assist you in different kind of way, or rather assist some people in different kind of way. But it cannot revolutionize the education system. When we talk of revolution, we talk of something big, the removal of something great of a social evil, like the dominance of these private players or even government players in most of the cases in how the college whole education system works, and the over dependence of this degree model. And revolution is something that happens always from within the system. Of course, AI can make it fast. Just like before computer, if we had to find some information, then we had to spend hours finding that in the dead corners of the library. Likewise, after the introduction of ChatGPT AI era, it will be more smooth and fast. The whole uh, uh, information, the gathering of information. Something that could come, and people have already talked about it, is the inequality of opportunity. And someone said that we can go to the remotest of villages when we talk of the online phase. There are people in there still are people in remotest of villages who don't know how to operate a smartphone. There is a huge educational illiteracy going on in India. Uh, uh, there are several people who are actually untouched to this day by technology. So, are we not going to keep on pushing them back and back into this whole? Uh, are we not going to pushing them back from this opportunity of the whole education system if we rely too much on the AI and the technological part. So according to me, both AI and the traditional form is necessary. Yeah, sorry for.
Thank you, Prince. After listening to most of the speakers, I think I very much agree with what everyone said. The only part that I may disagree with again is that I think Prince quoted it very well that we have an illiteracy problem in India, and people who still do not know how to work well with technology, and it will push them further into the corner if AI is implemented completely into the educational curriculum and our ways of teaching. Now, that is not to say that AI systems should not be implemented. It is just to say that how do we implement it in a way that these people are not pushed further back into the corner that they're already pushed into, right? So that was my point. And I'll now let Raghav go ahead.
Yeah, so I think this is a very counterintuitive thought, but I disagree with the thing that Rose just said about how AI is going to push them into the darkness or something. I think that one of the things that you have to understand, there are two things. The first one is that when technology progresses, right, and often there is a phenomenon called leapfrogging that happens. So, for example, if you look at like the um, payment systems in Nigeria, let's say, and compare it to payment systems in the US, you will see that there's a lot of cashless payments going on in Nigeria compared to the US, and it happens because more people use mobile phones, and like those kind of payment systems in Nigeria than people in the US are adopting. And oftentimes what happens is that when people without that technology try to build their infrastructure, they're now using like more newer technology, and oftentimes it makes things leapfrog faster. The pace of evolution will go faster than if they were to follow the same path as the other people. The reason why I'm bringing this up is like because I think it's an analogy with people as well. So if you now look at like the people in rural India and compare it to like people in urban India, you will say that people in urban India, they have more access, more opportunities and everything. But because of AI, I think we can make everything more accessible to even people in the rural areas, and we can bring them out of the darkness because of AI. Because I think AI is going to create like more accessible opportunities. Actually, one of the examples that I know is that there are a lot of rural Indians, they use Instagram, and they're able to some of them actually have made up a good future for themselves by becoming an Instagram influencer or something like that. If not for Instagram and the technological revolution of social media that's happening, right? What would have happened is that these people would have suffered. They would not have gotten the visibility and the kind of audience for their content if not for these technological interventions that happened, and nobody could have expected that. I mean, when Instagram first came out, like nobody would have expected that would become a platform for people to make a living out of. And that's what we see happening. So when AI is thriving, I think it's going to bring in something fundamentally distinct. And I think it's very ironic that we have titled this topic as "Will AI revolutionize education?" Because a revolution, by definition, is something that you can't really predict as to what's going to happen. So us, sitting at the precipice of a revolution and not recognizing it because our thinking is still pre-AI. We're thinking in the same terms about the future as what we know from a pre-AI history, because that's all we've known, right? So we fundamentally can't predict what's going to happen, and that makes it like a revolutionary thing in itself. And I think we are going to see extremely positive outcomes that nobody would have predicted, because everybody's too worried about the ethics of AI or the negative imaginations. But I feel like it's going to take all of us into like a brighter future, and it's going to create new opportunities that nobody could have predicted. So that's my take on it.
Thank you, Raghav. I mean, I do agree on most of the points that you made. The thing about the digital divide was that it's not that people in rural areas like cannot do anything with technology. When we're talking about revolution in the field of education, it inevitably has to come into the formal education system that we have, right? So if you see the facts that the people who are illiterate, right? The majority of these people reside in rural areas. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is that one, they're illiterate. And if we are to get the next generation of these people literate, the idea of education that they have is the education system that we have currently, right? That is not very intervened by AI. The thing is, if we have AI systems completely implemented and implemented into the formal education system, how well are these people going to cope with it? Of course, they might be familiar with technology, but are they familiar with technology in terms of education when they're not familiar with like the formal education system we have right now? What are the odds? I mean, of course, this might be a revolution and we might see like positive impacts, but honestly, again, it's something that we can't predict, right?
Okay, I want to quickly respond before I think we need to let the others speak as well. But I want to quickly respond to this. I think that that this is one of the problems that I was mentioning about the linear way of thinking, right? You're not able to like anticipate the other outcomes here. See, when I said that it will brighten up things, there's a nuanced understanding there. One is that things don't. It's never like a good or bad thing. 5 years down the line, it may be like really difficult for people to adapt. But maybe like 15 years down the line, people would have adapted and they would have overcome that initial bump. And then there was like a really positive curve there. Some of the things that you're saying are that initial bump that happens. There is any kind of like a disruptive technology is going to cause some amount of like a transitionary period of discomfort and inconvenience and change. Change is never like like an effortless thing. Change always takes like energy and intelligence and conscious effort for people to like manage and adapt. So it is going to be bumpy, but it's doesn't mean that it's necessarily for the bad. So you can't like stop because there is a bump ahead. You overcome the bump and then you go in the right direction. And there is no way that anybody can argue that adopting AI is not going to be beneficial or revolutionary. I think there will be some initial discomfort. I think overall it's really good, but I let the others speak.
Yep, can't argue with that one. I think I completely agree with that one. Thank you, Raghav. Suryansh, please go ahead.
Yeah, so I kind of agree with what Raghav said. And just to kind of think through the point that was raised by Rose and Prince, what you are saying is a fair point. Like, I understand where you're coming from, in the sense that whenever, like, we're looking at the socioeconomic status, socioeconomic class that we have in India or any country for that matter. India is roughly around 2,000, 3,000 dollar of per capita GDP. Correct. So naturally, there will be 70% people who will be below a certain line, 5% above a certain line, and all of that. Right. What I am kind of proposing is not to replace the current education system completely with AI. Why? Because it doesn't exist right now. We don't have an AGI solution which can, we can't, even if we want to, let's say we go with a point that, okay, 5 years down the line, we'll replace everything. We don't even know, because that technology doesn't even exist right now to be able to replace a human completely to teach kids, let's say for X number of years, right? It's a very, very theoretical discussion from that standpoint. Now connecting to what's practical, right? Like, if I think about it, whenever any innovation happens, right now, I was listening to a podcast in the morning where they were talking about, Ajay Shah was talking about how, computers kind of came to India when he was in his engineering time at IIT Bombay in 1980s, right? It was the very one of the very few colleges to have gotten a computer. Now, if we kind of go with the argument that the computer should only come to, let's say, all the schools, all the colleges in one go rather than a few places, etc., that theoretically will never work, though it's a good utopian way of looking at it. But in general, now my perspective on whenever, how does innovation happen? Innovation, who drives innovation, right? From a capitalistic standpoint, and a lot of these innovations are driven by money in a way, right? So driven either by rich people or by rich governments and all that, right? Now when that is being done, when technology is kind of moving in front, you can't have 100% adoption or 70% adoption in one go, because it doesn't work that way, right? Anything, any innovation, look at cars. When cars came in, of course, the rich people kind of adopted it, and their lifestyle was that difference would have come in the when new planes came in. If you think about 20 years before, 2003, 2004, no, like, very few people from middle class, upper middle class could have afforded an airline, and right now even lower middle class people cannot afford it. But when planes would have come in, and we say that no, planes should not be there because it will just increase the divide in the kind of the kind of things that people have, the kind of services that people have access to. So I don't kind of agree with that standpoint. The question is not about kind of hindering technology to so as to kind of have so-called economic equality, but rather than that, how can we really empower the respective sections of society to come out of it? Because let's say, like you rightly said, there will be a lot of illiterate people who don't even have education when they're a 10-year-old, 15-year-old. So if you just say that, okay, now use ChatGPT, that doesn't make sense, because they don't even understand how how does a phone work, or how can they even access it. So the bridge for them will be to, of course, kind of help them in that manner, right? And in the interim process, the 1% or 0.1% or 0.001% will always be leaps and bounds ahead of the curve. And that is not even the point in looking at it, because that is how innovation is kind of driven, right? So that is a large point that I wanted to kind of mention.
Thank you, Suryansh. Sandeep, please go ahead.
Hi. Yeah, I completely agree with Suryan. She made wonderful, beautiful points. I would like to touch upon AI itself. The most of the technology companies that are developing AI right now is more like machine learning. It uses statistical algorithms to do the data generation and how they can monetize on it. But if we talk about artificial general intelligence is more of like, if I have to put it in a quote, there is a quote like God created man in his own image. The man is creating AI in his own image. It is more of a, let's say, I wouldn't say a replacement, but it is a very ambitious attempt by the human species to make an image of our own brain itself, right? So it's by in an ideal situation, an artificial intelligence is just like any other human being. So that said, is it because our workforce, the very fabric of reality of humanity will be challenged by the very creation of artificial intelligence. And if or when if a company like Tesla will be able to put it in a humanoid, and the day will come where the robots will, we can say, mimic human beings, or maybe like surpass human beings. We can say anything. We can speculate a lot on that. But then it comes to a point where this doesn't actually become a point where will it revolutionize anything, or is it going to be just another tool, just like any technology? There are like goods and bads. And when it comes to AI, my glass is 80% full. If I have to make a comparison, let's say nuclear weapons, it's like, the good thing about nuclear weapons is like generating nuclear energy, right? Apart from that, there is no good thing about it. So there every technology has like has to lean more towards good and bad, psychologically, if you're speaking about that. So what what we are trying to do with education right now it is it is trying to lessen the burden for the teachers themselves, which of course, right now also we are using a lot of technology in schools to improve efficiency the way they are teaching it. Again, Mr. as Raghav has said, is the education system itself is what requires overall. So it doesn't matter if AI is involved or not. It is only going to make it, if it is bad, it is going to make it worse. So it is good, it is going to make it better, right? So the question remains, well, what actually eventually happens if the artificial general intelligence if does actually come into life, come to life, right? So that is like a future of abundance, right? If we live in a world where a lot of human beings are subjected to work ethics that a lot of people don't want to do it, right? So it is seen in a way that these humanoid robots will replace all the jobs that humans doesn't want to do. But also begs a question, if a human being takes 25 years to learn, develop intelligence that is comparable to society, and a robot can do it in a time where it takes time to manufacture it, right? Maybe let's say 1 second, if a factory can make out a robot every second. So literally it is minimizing your 25 years of learning into 1 second. So that is how efficient the things will be, and how the world will be able to deal with that is I think the biggest challenge that we will be facing in the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sanjeev. Darshan, please go ahead.
Okay, Rose. So once again, sorry for joining late. And of course, I didn't hear everyone's arguments, but I did hear the points made by Suryansh, Prince, and Raghav. All of them made really good points on a macro level. So I think I'll come up with something for, let's say, the individual level. I always believed that new technology, there is no such thing as good as bad. Everything has a spectrum. If a technology is capable of great good, it is conversely capable of great evil. I think that this can also be applied to AI here. Before I talk about this whole AI, I think I'd like to talk about my own personal experiences with children and teachers. One thing I've noticed when I spoke to teachers is a lot of children have, compared to like 5-10 years ago, a lot of children have lost a lot of reading comprehension and attention span, and they're incapable of reading a book. They don't have the patience to read a single book. And of course, all this has been already scientifically attributed to prolonged screen time and prolonged exposure to short form content, which has rewired the brain to adapt to short form content rather than lengthy content like movies or books. And I think this can also be somehow translated to generative AI. Have you ever thought what you do when you're writing? This is like a personal question to all of you. Have you ever thought what writing teaches you? Have you never learned something about your own thoughts by writing it out? Writing, I feel, is a wonderful way of articulating your own thoughts. A lot of learners, what they do when they sit down and think about a topic for hours together, it gives them a strong understanding what they're learning about, what they're doing before they even put the pen on the paper. And I feel AI will undermine this process of thinking and exploring yourself. AI should be used by businesses to like, AI should be used to like, let's say, get research tools rather than just downing down an entire report and just copy pasting it. The whole point of learning something is understanding it. Having an AI, let's say, children using AI to write their essay demonstrates zero understanding of the topic. And of course, I don't know how to mitigate this problem. I'm just highlighting the problems here without giving a solution. But I feel like, let's say, AI is capable of doing great things, but on an education scale, I have my doubts on it because Facebook did a great thing of connecting people who were far away, but then again, it opened a can of worms that people it's fundamentally altered society in a way, good and bad. And today, I think we are seeing a lot more of the bad than the good. I don't think the founder of Facebook wanted to leave this legacy. I think this is how AI will be in like 10, 20 years in the future. We will have like this is my I don't want to fear monger, but if AI is like normalized for children to do their homework, get out their essays, get out their thesis or anything like that, I feel like it will reduce the critical thinking comprehension at their formative years. And you know what they say, right? If you don't bend as a plant, you don't bend as a tree. I feel like if you prolong exposure, give them prolonged exposure to AI in assisting in their learning, I feel like it takes out their whole thought process, which I mentioned, which happens through writing. And of course, a lot of teachers have spoken to have, let's say, confided in me regarding this one. So yeah, that's the I don't as much as I wanted to end it on a high note, I feel like this is something that we cannot draw conclusions at least we need to wait 10, 15 years to see what kind of an impact it would have had on society and look back and think, was it worth it?
Thank you, Darshan. Great points made right there. Suryansh, please go ahead.
So I agree with So I agree with a lot of the points that Darshan kind of highlighted. The only nuance I will want to add there is that uh, when we look at technology as a whole, right? Uh, Even when we look at so attention span is one of the points that Darshan said. Now that is definitely happening in and affecting the cognitive development of children, and not just children. I would actually go on to argue that that is happening for everybody. It's not just children who are being affected. Probably they are being affected the most, and if that is the point that Darshan is saying, then I wholeheartedly agree, because if in the formative years this is how they are kind of having, then how will they even develop critical thinking ability, which will become even more difficult in the future? That I agree, but that is kind of happening across all generations as a whole, right? And even the impact of like Facebook and Instagram on the mental health of teenagers, etc. Right? All of them being said, AI has the potential to definitely revolutionize it, but it needs to have some sort of governance, whether it is the schools that put it, government that puts it, or whether it is the parents, teachers who put it. So if you assume that a kid and just a 10-year-old kid will have that level of maturity to understand how to use that tool on his own, that is something that will definitely not happen. And the systems, and which is the point that I made in the beginning, of how we are able to use technology for maximizing the kind of the benefits and minimizing the negatives, that is something which will have to be bridged in. Otherwise, definitely it will be a source of complete disaster. And another point that Darshan had said was, when we look at a kid kind of copying the assignment and putting it up, that is in the current way assignments were given, right? But I would beg to differ here that the way of measuring, like the kind of tests, right? We used to have as kids, as during colleges, that model will definitely not work because that is no longer there right now. In the world where somebody can just copy paste and just a 2 second thing can give them a full answer, right? So the way we measure people's kind of aptitude and kind of improve their learning, that itself will have to evolve if you want to really get the benefit out of AI. And if you are not able to do so, then I definitely agree that there'll be zero cognitive load, which means there'll be zero learning in the at all, right? So yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Suryansh. Sandeep, please go.
Yeah, yeah. So AI definitely requires governance and oversight. And I think when it comes to education, provided the education system itself is, how you say, restructured, I think AI should or AI would be able to help teachers to make the teachings more effective than, it would be it it would be probably insensitive to consider leaving children to completely rely on AI. So if I have to imagine an extreme world where no teachers will be required anymore to interact with children, because if and when AI does come into picture to replace teachers, it is obviously an efficient way for educational institutions and the system itself to rely on AI, until unless some governing body does interfere and put some regulations towards how the AI will be employed in education system, and how it be directly interacting with children, or will it be increasing the efficiency of the teachers itself. So that is where when it happens, we will know what are the effects of it. And governing and regulation is very very crucial when it comes to AI. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandeep. Darshan?
Suryansh, thank you for touching upon all those points I made. The reason why I told children in particular is because today we're talking about education, and the biggest demographic for education is currently children. And I don't want to call children, but 22 people are all 22-year-olds are also children, considering they're in an academic space. So that's the reason why I did emphasize on children. While I do, I mean, I do see my parents at home constantly scrolling shorts, and it has kind of changed their temperament. But let's not go over that. But yeah, you did touch upon one point. The children are mature enough to use these tools, but that's the same opinion I had 15 years ago on YouTube, on Instagram when it just came out. But children, they're like, let's say they're growing at a fast pace, which even I also can't understand. I do have I do see kids at my home when my sister brings them, so I have seen how they act actually. Because the moment they get the phone, they're, even though they're just 7 years old, 8 years old, they do things which I couldn't do when I was 14 or 15. So I feel they're learning at a fast pace. They can do Google searches, they can do look up the YouTube videos they want before lunch. So I feel like the more and more time progresses, the more and more the technology will become so simple that even everyone can use it. So the moment it becomes simple, the more easier it will become accessible. Let's take, I like to give a strong example here. Let's take deepfakes, for example. Before, it took complex knowledge of digital design, graphic design to make some morphed photographs. But right now, anyone can just take some photos, put it in some AI photo generator and make it, let's say, make me some graphically suggestive, make me something graphically suggestive from this photo, and the photo is of a real person. It doesn't require them to have some sort of a complex knowledge of Photoshop or any digital designing tools. I feel that's the same way with AI. The more and more easier it become to use, it's already easier. You can it's just one search bar away. So yeah, I feel like it will become more simplified in the future, and of course, even primary schoolers can also use it. Even if it becomes sufficiently simpler, even nursery children can also use it.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Darshan, but you're not very audible. I'm sorry to interrupt. Your
Okay,
voice keeps disappearing in between.
okay. I'll make it a smaller version. In a nutshell, every technology becomes simple in the future. Even Google search has become so simple. Even my dad, who is 66 years old, who's never used much technology, he also can do Google searches. He can also use Google Maps. He also can use YouTube. So that's the point I was trying to make. As technology grows, it becomes sufficiently simpler for the demographics to use, and the demographic will expand with the simplification of technology. So that's the point I was making here. Suryansh, you can go ahead.
Hey,
Thank you, Darshan.
Darshan. So
Rudra,
my
please go ahead.
point. Hey, sorry. Yeah. So I
Go
was
ahead.
saying, yeah, Darshan. So my point was actually a little different. My point was not that whether the kids will be able to use the technology or not, because naturally the things that a lot of the 12-year-old 14-year-old know of using maybe tools like a Discord or other things which I still don't understand to that extent, right? So my point was not whether they'll be able to use the technology or not. My point was whether in the right manner. For example, if you look at GPT, right, chat GPT can give you, if you just ask one liner that give me an essay on, let's say, the Bangalore Palace, right? Give me a 200 word or 1000 word essay on the Vodiyar dynasty and the Bangalore Palace, right? That is one way of looking at it, right? Another way is, if let's say, if the objective was to kind of go deeper into the 19th century history and last 200 300 years of what, let's say, happened in Bangalore and how we have evolved, like all the rulers which have been there, then the questions will be different, no? So ultimately we all learn by asking questions, and let's say, rather than asking for a 1000 word essay, the kid is asking that, can you tell me something about Vodiyar dynasty, because they don't know anything. Let's say start with, what is Bangalore Palace? And then the chat GPT will give you some answers, and based on the specific question that the kid has, he asks the next question, and this kind of, let's say, goes on for 10, 20, 30 questions, right? In the matter of 15, 20 minutes, the kid would have learned so much more, and such an organic way of asking a self inquiry based questioning, that is going to lead to something learning, which, because the questions are also not directed to, because I have to do an assignment, I'm asking this question. The question is something which the kid is literally having, the thought that they're having, the way the neural network is there, in how their memories are, everything, so that is what my kind of thing was. The right way of using, first of all, how do we define the right way is of course questionable, but of course there can be certain strategies and techniques that maybe, let's say, a lot of people don't know about right now. How can kids kind of know it, first of all, and kind of have the conscientiousness to actually implement those strategies? That is where kind of where I was coming from.
Okay, Suryansha. Thank you for clearing that up. But one more thing I'd like to add here is, yeah, sometimes they may use it right, but how many times will they use it in the right way, and how many times will they use it in the wrong way? Because academic pressure makes everyone do, let's say, questionable things. Even I too did some dishonest things to do, finish my homework, finish my assignments, finish my internals, and all those other kind of things. So when I'm given the push of academic pressure, I mean, of course, when I'm learning on my own, I go to rabbit holes that even I don't know if I would have gone there. Like, like what people say, right? 3 a.m. rabbit holes. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. When I'm learning things on my own, yeah, I do it. But when the push of academic pressure comes, you can definitely be sure I'll be dishonest about it. That's the point I was trying to get across. Yeah, I finished my point.
Okay. So I just wanted to add for Darshan's statements. I just see what you said is entirely true, but I just wanted to add another point. Like, even let's say even before technology existed, people being dishonest, let's say they copied from a friend's book. If you want to be dishonest, you can do it anyway. But of course, having easy access to be dishonest does enhance, or how do you say, improves the chances of being dishonest. But the nature of the beast itself, let's say it's being dishonest is the nature of the beast. Something is facilitating you to be easier to do it. It lures out your intuition to do it instead of inhibiting it. So it is like a double-edged sword, right? You have access to do it, so you will do it easier. If you don't have access to do it, then it takes a kind of a, you have to, the the bar is lower when the technology is easier to access. The bar to get it is easier, but if it is not, then the bar is higher, and it might discourage some people. So that's, I just wanted to add that. Thank you.
I think we've pretty much reached the unmoderated session. So just lining out basic instructions. You're no longer required to raise your hands before you speak, but avoid interrupting other speakers while they are making their points, and please be respectful. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Rose. So yeah, what Sandeep said was absolutely right. If you have easier means of cheating, you'll definitely go for it. It's just human nature at the end. We just want to achieve more with little to no efforts. So yeah, I feel like that's the point Sandeep was making, and it was absolutely right. I do believe that AI should be implemented in education because it is such a monumental thing in our era. I think like just like how there were golden ages of music, golden age of, let's say, technology, I feel like this is the golden age of AI, and we cannot alienate entire demographics because of it. But right now, I do not know how to, like, let's say, come up with the good ways to expose it to the demographic. So yeah, that is one thing which I really wanted to get across. I do believe that this should be implemented in education, but I do not know how it should be implemented.
So the companies which are developing AI, are, at least for now, are in control of what to do with it, right? So that is why it is very important for a government body to get involved and have an oversee what this technology is being used for on their own citizens, right? So it is just like any technology that is being used right now. But the challenge with AI is it is so complex. The corporation or the company which is developing it only knows what it is capable of fully, right? So an oversight, even if the government have an oversight, it is very, very hard for them to actually figure out, are they even complying to the laws they are put up with. So it is a very powerful tool. And see, as I just wanted to quote, like, with great power comes great responsibility, and you have to use it the way it is, probably in a constructive way for the future of humanity. And of course, I'm pretty sure that it will be used in a very the modern warfare will be AI, right? It goes to say nevertheless. So these are the things that will happen in the future. So we have to, we see this is why the governments have to work along with the corporations, because like Elon Musk have stated multiple times that AI requires government oversight, but they are busy with their own political agendas, right? So we have to be proactive about it. We have to make our governments understand its potential, and then proactively make some laws and include these AI developers, like the companies and the corporations, in themselves into the loop. What are the plans for the future? What are the roadmap for what they are doing?
One
Yeah, I'm done.
point, okay, sorry.
I'm done. I'm done. You can go ahead.
Okay, okay. So I completely agree with what Sandeep was saying, basically. And Darshan, just a thought, right? In general, whenever we look at even games like when we had the metaverse and the games in metaverse and like concerts and a lot of those things, right? Like many of the times that whether because of technology we are even in the example of deep fakes, right? It's quite unfortunate in one sense of the world that we have got such great technology, and rather than leveraging it for good, people are using it in some manners which probably it was not even thought through, but in the beginning. But then those are the loopholes that we kind of have to plug in, as because we have to in a way govern, because in a way if we kind of have no rules and no regulations, we don't know how the society will kind of function, right? And which kind of brings me to the point of human nature, right? Like, so human nature is is having the capabilities of great positive deeds, as well as unimaginable negative deeds, and it's both are equal parts of being a human, fortunately or unfortunately. Now, any new technology will kind of come with that risk. Now, having said that, how can we to one level we can of course have a more moral authority and kind of judge it, but in another way we should not be restricting technology. We should of course be very careful, especially for because when we are looking at education, then definitely it is somebody who is less than 15 years of age, or to some extent 20 years of age, or 25, right? But if those basic loopholes are kind of plugged in, then that risk is kind of there in any technology that we kind of bring about. So that is what human nature is, and how can we like amplify the positive and kind of minimize the negative should be the strategy, should be the governance that has to be kind of brought in, either organically bottom up or in a top down manner.
Yes, absolutely, Suryansh, you were right. As I said when I started when making my points, it's not a matter of good or bad, it's a spectrum. Any technology which is capable of great good is also capable of great evil. So I don't like to use the term loopholes because it's a point on the negative spectrum. If something is capable of great good, it's capable of great evil. It's a spectrum here. So yeah, like I said, I don't want to abhor AI from entering education. I want it to be integrated into the education system without taking away any core values of what education really means. And one of Sandeep and of course both of you made points that being dishonest is human nature. But one thing is, when I was I'll go anecdotal here. I can't make a strong point here. When I was copying assignments, even when I was copying word for word, I made sure to read everything. So in a way, even though I wasn't learning anything, some sort of a learning got, like, let's say, completed. Even when I was in my university days and I was copying practical records of others, I did get to know, like, I did know how the experiment was done as I was reading while copying it. But when it is reduced to a copy and paste, you can be damn well sure I won't read 2000 words of what I just copied and pasted. I'll just look at the top and I'll just look at the bottom and I'll be like, okay, my assignment is done. That's it. So yeah, while some level of learning was done while I was copying, I don't think I'll be able to learn much while I just copy and paste 2000 words from one document to another document and rename it. I'm done
See,
with my point.
yeah, you can go ahead. Okay, I'll speak. See, the many historians agree that the written form of communication is a step down from the verbal form of communication, right? So we in the verbal form of communication is naturally developed through evolution, but the written form of communication is an invention by human beings, and do so every technology that we invented thereafter. So the technology itself, it is like a Frankenstein story, right? Frankenstein invents a beast and then the beast itself changes the Frankenstein. So it's like we invent the technology and then it becomes the cycle of loop that it changes us, and then we invent new technology and then it changes us in a way that it becomes a part of the life that we feel it is. We feel like, I think Darshan has mentioned about uh, the advantage of writing it down and then have a thought process of going through that journey, right? So we are in a civilization, we are in a evolution of the through civilization, right? So AI is one such technology that is like nothing like we ever invented before, right? Because most of the technologies that we invented can or will have, fall into a place where they are tools. They can be used for a lot of things. And as far as the AI is concerned, the problem and the concern that comes to everybody's minds is it is like a replacement for the human brain itself, right? We are trying to replace our own existence with it, and that is what makes it different from any other technology. It is a tool, but the chances that it has that can be used as a replacement for the very creator itself is what brings in the dark side of it. But again, we will be the one who will be creating it. And if if the pessimistic angle wouldn't take over it, I think being optimist, there is always what is it, capability. We have the capability to keep it as a tool instead of a replacement for us. Thank you.
Very interesting point, Sandeep. I kind of agree that the technological enhancement that when we are talking about AI is quite revolutionary compared to anything else that we have previously done. So I kind of really agree with that point. I just thought of putting together on a side note something that we did not discuss over the last 1 hour 15 minutes was basically whatever AI kind of says, right? The hallucinations that in a way that when an AI hallucinates, right? So which is a big gap right now, and I'm not sure even with better LLM models we will be able to improve the accuracy beyond a certain point, because ultimately all the models are based on the content which humans have put in on the web or the books or the papers, etc. Right? And which is where when we kind of think about AI giving us any answer, and around 80% of the times when I kind of ask the question, then I get the right response. But 20% times I definitely know that it is wrong. And within the 80%, I don't even know what percentage of it is wrong, especially for a thing that I am kind of learning or searching on GPTs for things that I have comparatively lesser awareness of, right? Which is a big gap. And personally for me, a lot of the learning that I do is based on my interests. But for a student, for someone who's younger in school or college, and that those are the foundational questions, that the foundational answers that they can uh, basically build their entire knowledge structures on, which can be quite risky. Because when we look, like, to give you an example, when earlier we used to search on Google, we used to get, let's say, 10, 15 links. We will search, we'll go to the website, we'll probably search the sources sometimes, right? Maybe not so much in school, but I'm in a way talking about college in this case. But we used to do that. But now with the not talking about the search GPT here, but the overall Gemini and ChatGPT and Perplexity, they kind of summarize the knowledge in a couple of points, right? Which is where there's a very big chance of kind of missing out on the nuances which are there in any argument, right? To very simplistic structure. Because if you think about any writing for that matter, and one of the mental models I often refer to is the map is not the territory, and the reality that we live in is like the terrain, right? And the maps and the kind of frameworks or the articles or things that we kind of read about are more of the maps. And if, let's say, the world starts looking completely at maps, forgetting about the reality and just thinking the 3 4 points that GPT has kind of given to them is the reality, that is a huge risk, where people will stop being kind of divergent and start thinking in a very structured manner of, this is a framework that I know about XYZ, and there is no more nuance to be further studied. So kind of serendipity is something which I perhaps feel will be a thing that using AI, we are definitely at a risk of missing out. And I often find in my own, I'm guilty of it myself sometimes, when I'm learning something and I'll feel that, okay, I know it now, but when I understand it later on, I realize I've missed out on a couple of these because I've just looked at the summary in a way and not gone to the sources.
I'd
See
like to
the
bring up the calculator as an example here, because because a lot of people say this, right? We said the same thing about landlines, we said the same thing about telephones, we said the same thing about smartphones, we said the same thing about calculators, but all of them have their own nuances on what good they did and what bad they did. So I'd like to give the calculator example here, because that's what a lot of people had fears when the calculator was bought, right? People will not know how to do math, but I feel like the education system handled it wonderfully, because I wasn't able to allowed to use a calculator in school until I was in the 11th grade. So until 10th grade, I had to do all the calculations by hand. And when I was like when I had mastery over all the basic operations of arithmetic, that's when I was allowed to use the calculator. I feel like this is the same thing that AI is undergoing through right now. Until children have a strong reading and writing comprehension, they shouldn't be allowed to use AI. Only when their thinking comprehension is solid enough and they can go, this is wrong, this is right. I feel like that's the space where we can like, okay, AI is perfect. We can let them use AI. So yeah, that's the point I was making on what is the level of, like, let's say, how we can allow children to use AI, but I still have no idea how we can prohibit them from using until they hit a certain stage. But in an ideal world, I feel like this would be the perfect frame. The moment they learn how to read and write, and of course, assert like have good discernment ability, that's when they should be allowed to use AI for their, let's say, purposes.
Mm.
So I think
So,
the
sorry.
yeah. Can I go ahead? Okay.
Yes, Sandeep, please.
So I think see the current state of AI that we are all able to access through multiple corporations. I think it is more of a glorified machine learning. There is no uh, 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 the artificial general intelligence that actually exists today that can actually be called as an AI. AI is like still doesn't exist, right? Fully. And yes, the I think Darshan has just nicely pointed out. Yes, the current state of AI is just like a calculator, or you can limit it. You have to limit its accessing capable its access to the children, and it does have it does have the negative effects of not having the critical thinking of the developing children. And also, I think Suryansh has made a point that it it misses a lot of detailed points when you ask when you ask for information towards something. It has its own way of giving it to you, and it doesn't feel very exciting or natural, right? It is just an information that you get from Google or you're getting from ChatGPT in a more sophisticated, more curated way. But the question, it begs the question, let's say if someday an artificial general intelligence does come into life, and if it is, just imagine, if it is capable of acting just like you. Just imagine if a software program is loaded into a humanoid and it exactly behaves like you for your children. If will you let a humanoid which exactly behaves like you, thinks like you, which is programmed because of your it is like embedded your own thought process into the humanoid, and then that is what I call artificial general intelligence, right? It is not it is not naturally evolved, we made it. So that begs the question, will you then what are the arguments that come into place that the children will have cognitive abilities, because the humanoid will understand that exactly what you understand is good for your children. So will you let a humanoid robot near your children? That is where it actually boils down to. That is where the artificial intelligence debate actually comes from. Are they going to replace us? Is what actually is the, if you want to, if you project the future to the optimistic way, and this everything goes the way it should be, to invent and have a working model of artificial general intelligence, that is where you have to ask the question, will you be letting your children near a humanoid robot that behaves exactly like you?
Sandeep, basically what you're saying is, in the future, assuming after 5 years, 10 years down the line, we get an AGI, right? Um, I'm not sure if I really understand the point that you're making in this one, because no, it's not just about the children anymore. It's like the point that you're raising is in general for the for the entire humanity. It's not about whether you let the AGI be near your kids or not. It's about will we be relevant, or will the artificial intelligence, the AI, be kind of negative, positive, and all that. And probably that can be a separate discussion itself. But it will kind of help, like it will make us think those fundamental existentialist questions, um, right? And it will not just be kind of limited to your whether being allowed to be near your children.
Yeah, that is like, if we are actually talking about AI, isn't that what actually it is going to be? Because the current state of AI is not going to last very long, right? So it's, today we are debating about something, and then tomorrow morning it's a new world that we'll be stepping into. Are you speaking? We cannot hear you.
No, I'm not speaking.
Okay.
I feel like we haven't explored this important point. A lot of us talk about regulating AI, right? But let's take a global example here. If it the country which starts to strong arm its AI developers, it will definitely fall behind because they will be compelled by the threat of regulation to, let's say, not innovate. If the government, let's say, hey, you're advancing too fast, I'm going to take away your funding. But at that moment, someone else will get a step forward. So I feel like this is the stage where we are kind of having an AI arms race here. So it is in the best benefit of the regulators to not act until they know they're at the top of their game. So yeah, I feel like this is one point that is not being addressed at the moment. It is in every country's best interest to not regulate their AI developers because the moment they start strong arming, that's when I feel like it will stifle their innovation. The moment they're given like guardrails, say you should not do this, you should not do that. I feel like that's something that it's in the worst interest of every country. Let's say America and China. These are like the current countries which are having some sort of an EV arms race, right? And now let's remove EV and let's put AI here. The moment one of these countries starts regulating their, let's say, developers, that's when the other country will get ahead. So I feel like this is something like a lot of governments actually know, and they're deliberately not regulating it because they want to come out on the top of the game, irrespective of the prices they're going to pay in the future. And they don't care about what the future price will be. They just want to stay ahead of the game right now.
I think it is not, it is less of regulating, more of an oversight. You're not inhibiting or like restricting them to do what they are doing. An oversight is like keeping an eye on them, understanding what it is capable of, which has also national security angle to it. So it is, as I said, it is, so I don't think any government is trying to restrict, because I don't think they even understand uh, what it is capable of fully. They don't even actually understand fully what it is capable of right now, because the corporations who are developing it is only knows the full potential of it, right? Obviously they are not going to just hand over the data to any government entity just without any resistance, at least, or even without uh, showing some, are keeping some proprietary technology for themselves. So it is more of an insight that government should have, that it serves both national security interest, and also will have keep them up to date what is going on in the world. So as you said, I don't think any government is actually trying to restrict AI development as such.
Sandeep, you might want to respond to Rajiv in the chat.
Sorry, I'm not audible.
You might want to respond to that.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you, Rose. Can you come again?
Hey, am I audible?
Yeah.
Right. I just said you might want to like respond to Rajiv in the chat.
Rajiv. Oh, in the chat? Okay. I think he left.
Yeah, I think he left the meeting. Never mind.
I am talking about general AI. It is a part of the discussion. I'm not sure what is off the topic. If we are talking about AI, there is no discussion without talking about general artificial intelligence.
Hey guys, sorry to interrupt. I have to say I really enjoyed this discussion, but I have to get leaving right now. Thanks Rose once again for the wonderful session.
Yeah. Thank you, Rose. I think we can
Thanks for being here,
wrap up.
guys.
Yeah.
See you next week.